Here is going to be our first good look at the newest build in the shop. This is Jamey's F150, and this is in here to get a set of my I-beam suspension put on it. We're going to be doing also probably some shock stuff, so let's kind of get into it. I'll show you the whole truck. You can obviously see it's already built out truck. It's got a cage front to back. It's linked in the rear. It's got some beams up front already, so it's already on coilovers all the way around. But we're going to be just looking to make it better. There's a lot of things with this truck. You can tell I don't know the history enough to know when exactly it was built or who built it or where or anything like that. But you can just tell by some of the parts on it and some of the different things on it, it was built quite a long time ago. We've got the Hello Lights light rack up there. There's this Papa's and Beer racing sticker on this back window, which if you follow racing, you'll know what that is. That's been on there a while. The build style and setup itself were linked in the back, but this is something I've seen on old school builds, and especially using sway-away shocks. So I don't know who was doing this or what the theory really is on doing this setup, but you'll notice, if you notice link trucks, this is backwards from what people are doing nowadays. For higher motion ratio, you want the coilover in front of the bypass. Now this bypass appears to be, from what I can measure, a 16-inch stroke, and this coilover appears to be an 18-inch stroke coilover. So that could be possibly why they're mounted backwards. Just maybe that's what they had. I don't really know. There's a lot of things you could assume. But this might be something that we might look at changing as far as shocks. I need to find out what the stroke length is on these shocks. So that's kind of getting me into the very first things that we're going to be doing on this thing is set up the GoPro, and I need to get the beams and steering all pulled off on this thing. So I need to get the frame sitting on jack stands, and then I can start disassembling stuff, and I can get the shocks pulled off of it. I need to figure out what the shock lengths are and see what's usable. The owner does already have a pair of Fox 18-inch bypasses that we could use on that rear. So if those coilovers are 18s, we'll need to find some 16s. And then the fronts, I generally run a 14-inch coilover with a 16-inch bypass in the front, which if those bypasses in the rear are 16s, we could pull those and put those up front. And then we'll need to find a 14 and a 16-inch coilover, which either his front or rears might be those. So a lot of answers to get, so we need to pull those off and figure that stuff out, and then we can progress that on the build. For now, we'll take a look at the beams and steering that's already on here. These beams are using a stock radius arm end and mount. So those have been modified and made. And then the beam ends themselves are some Dana 44 ends with some cast knuckles. They cut them here, and then this is all fabricated, welded stuff. The steering is only a single swinger setup, so that swinger there swings, and then this drag link and tie rod are bolted on this pitman arm that somebody made up. So when you have that, you're gonna have bump steer. This is one of the things that for me personally nowadays, I wouldn't even waste my time building a truck with single steer like this, because I look at aftermarket work and fabrication as, if you're going to do it, might as well do it to the best of your abilities. And for a beam setup like this, dual swing steering is definitely the best case scenario and the best thing that we want. So we got to take steering off, beams off, radius arms off. We'll get the shocks out of there. We'll probably end up redoing bump stop mounts and limit straps and all that stuff when I get beams on there and cycling. And then we are also going to be replacing this engine cross member. This engine cross member, they've got stuff welded on here for the beam pivots, but they've also went ahead and kind of hacked holes in it for the beams to come up and cycle. So we're going to eliminate all that stuff, and that'll all be new. We'll probably end up doing a little bit of cage work as well. This shock mount and these bars are probably going to get cut out. We'll keep these main tubes in here, and then we'll be adding some tube work and structure, some bracing up here, coilover, engine crossover bracing, all that type of stuff when we go to get shocks mounted on this thing. You might have noticed that engine is very far deep back in there. The first cylinders are almost at the firewall, that distributor. It's got a big old doghouse in between the two seats in here for that motor to sit. So that is crazy far and makes my life as far as building stuff up here way easier. I don't have to deal with anything like that. All of the plumbing, the engine's fresh, all the plumbing, oil cooling, fuel lines, all things like that. Electrical, this whole thing just got wired up. All this stuff is new. So this build is really it's an old truck that, like I said, I don't have much history. If I can get some history on it, I'll share it on this channel. But it's an old truck that's kind of getting a bunch of revamping and stuff like that done to it. So we're going to make this thing a little more modern. It's already got the electrical and cooling now. And as far as the chassis being linked, it's got fiberglass, all that type of stuff. Really, it's just missing the suspension package to be able to run the dunes that this is being built for, Silver Lake sand dunes here in Michigan. This thing with my beam kit and the proper shocks and setup should rip pretty good. Single cab truck with the wheelbases that these are very good off-road trucks for Michigan dunes, because most of the whoops and terrain that we have gets overrun continuously because of how small the area is. And most of the vehicles that are in the dunes are side-by-sides. Side-by-sides have a very similar wheelbase to single cab trucks, and that allows them to ride over the whoops. I don't know if it's easier, but you still need to have the link suspension, you still need to have the shocks that are tuned properly and all that type of stuff. But they definitely, I'd always describe whoops as like wavelengths. So, and when you have a wheelbase that doesn't match the wheelbase of a vehicle that fits in those wavelengths, it just starts getting more variables that you got to worry about. So I don't know if that makes any sense. It didn't really make much sense to me. But anyways, I'm a big fan, obviously, of single cab linked and beam trucks. If you know my C10, then you know that's what I like. So pretty pumped on this truck. This truck should be running beams and be out on the sand summer of 2026. So that is where we're at on this one. I'm going to get the GoPro set up, start tearing into this one. Gotten the shocks off the F-150 here off the front, starting to work on the radius arms. I came over here, took the jack out and pushed down on this beam, and I was able to catch the beam pivot over there, which is part of the cross member. You can see this big chunk right here has been cut out, which is really a lot of the structural integrity has been cut out of that. And when I pick this beam up and move it, that whole, let's see if I can get in here a little better. That whole cross member pivot point over there is twisting back and forth. So not a very stout setup right there. That beam pivot hanging off and then that cross member cut out. They did that so this beam would clearance and get up there. But something like that, running around Silver Lake sand dunes with the whoops and jumps and different stuff we have out there, that wouldn't have made it through a season, I don't think, without ripping. That would have only been a couple trips. So definitely, more of the reasons kind of why we're replacing it and putting a different beam kit on there. So. I have gotten the beams and steering plus the shocks off of this truck. Even got the rears, got it sitting up on jack stands. And yeah, everything that was bolted on, I was able to get off, and now I've got some stuff to cut. I got the beam pivots. I got to get these bumps out yet, and then I'm going to end up cutting those off. Those are going to get moved. But for the most part, all the stuff that could be unbolted off this thing, got them off. I got the shock stuff, so now I can work with the owner on this one and figure out the shock package we're going to be doing, and all that fun stuff. So, sitting on jack stands. The next thing, I'll start working on prepping this frame. This frame will get sanded down. I'm going to do some overlays, stiffen this thing up a little bit, and give us just a nicer appearance, block off these holes and all that type of stuff. So that'll be kind of the next thing as far as fabrication on this, as well as starting to put together the beams for it. That is all the stuff for the beams there. The spindle uprights are already done for this truck. This is a set of my spindle uprights here. These are fully welded out. So these are all ready. I need to get the beams and radius arms going now. And then I also need to do some computer work. I'll have to, now that I've got this truck on jack stands, I'm going to do a bunch of measuring off of the floor and get this frame and some dimensions of the frame drawn in my computer. And then I can start working on beam pivots. That's what I do with all of these trucks. Once they're up on jack stands, I draw the frame rail and figure out where that beam pivot needs to be, how far out from the frame, how low, and all that type of fun stuff to make the camber and track width and everything fit in there how we want it to. So I draw everything in the computer, and then it's about executing, making everything match the computer as far as getting geometry, and if you are trying to get really, really specific things. And that's what I do here. I like going as far as I can with attention to detail, as far as the geometry, and just making things, in my opinion, what I think is the best setup for beams and making them work well, especially for our area here in Silver Lake Sand Dunes. Anyways, that's where we're at on this one. So, got two trucks on jack stands now, two beam projects in progress, and now that we've gotten this one all torn apart, sitting there, I'm actually ready to put bolt beams back on this one. So that's what I'm going to be doing next. This has got the frame overlays and beam pivots all done, the transmission cross member / radius arms, mounts, that's all in there. So I'm going to take all of this stuff and bolt it all back in under here, so that way I can start working on steering next. So that'll be the next thing I'm doing. Here is a little look at the kit that just came off of that F150 over there. Those are the beams and radius arms that they had set up, using some stock OEM radius arm ends, Ford ends, and then yeah, just some cast Dana 44 spindle uprights with the ends, ball joints. One of these, I don't remember, one of these ball joints was blown out when I took them off, super wiggly. But that is what the F-150 will be getting. That's what's laying on the ground over there that I just showed you, all those tubes and plates. So we'll get another one welded up for the F-150. And for now, we're going to get this one bolted back on this Chevy Silverado. The beams, radius arms, spindle uprights are all back on for the very first time after getting the frame overlays and the I-beam pivots all welded up on both sides. So that is super cool, and with proper hardware. I had ordered the proper hardware, so I shanked the bolts, and we have proper hardware in there now. And this truck is ready to get steering done. I already have the steering swingers made up on this thing. That thing's gonna go right in that range, somewhere in there. And Then there's the passenger one over there. So that's going to be the next thing I'm going to start working on this thing. I'll have to draw that stuff up in CAD. So I'll work on taking some measurements, coming up there with that swinger, taking some measurements, drawing some stuff up in CAD. Sometimes I can get it first try and burn out a set of tabs that will work, and sometimes it takes me two. I might burn them and then find out I want to tweak them a little bit more to fit the frame better. So that's kind of my process on how I'm going to go about mounting those. That'll be kind of in the next video. We'll get a little bit more into that. I don't know. I guess I can share like how I go to set them up. That'll be kind of the procedure. We'll get a little bit more into that on the Chevy. That is the next thing coming up. So mounting swingers and getting this gearbox here mounted on the inside of this frame. You can still see there's the stock frame horns here for the bumper, and there's a little rust. I got to do a little bit more rust cleanup on the front frame horns here. I got where the frame overlays went and where the mounting all is done, but once this stuff all, after I get steering all tacked up and cycling on here and working, all this stuff will come off at least one more time. For me to final weld everything, and then that's probably when I'm going to go at the rest of this stuff for taking care of the rust on it, cleaning that up. I know a lot of you people that are watching this probably don't have to deal with rusty frames on your vehicles, and something I'm jealous of, but here in with a Michigan vehicle, that was part of this project that I knew was going to not be the funnest part, was dealing with the rust on this, but there's still plenty of good metal underneath, and with the frame overlaying and the caging we're doing, it's not going to be an issue. So that is where we're at on this thing. I kind of, right before I filmed this, took like 10-15 minutes, just sat here staring at it, checking it out. It's been not all this stuff has been done sitting for quite a while, not on the truck, and getting that framework done, you know, seeing this truck not with the parts on it, it's like, man, this thing's got a long ways to go, and we still do considerably. But getting all the stuff bolted back on there, it does. I don't know. I guess I didn't know I needed my spirits raised, but I sat here for like 10-15 minutes and just taking it all in of how much work is actually underneath there, fully done. So I'm pretty pumped to get steering going on this thing and get the steering cycling. We'll get that box all up into the wheel in the cab, and yeah, that'll be sweet to knock all that stuff out. And now having two trucks sitting on jack stands, we got hovercraft mode on both of these, and need to get another set of those right there welded up for Jamey's F150. So pretty cool. Hope you like I guess the stuff I'm putting up. If you got any specific questions about like mounting swingers in the gearbox, or in like anything that I do, that's going to be stuff that I'm filming coming up in the next weeks. Anything you want to see more specifically on Jamey's truck, let me know, and yeah, I'll read it in the comments and we'll try to put them in the video. So again, thanks for watching my videos. Peace.